Step 11. It works. From how it works. Okay. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. The first 10 steps have set the stage for us to improve our conscious contact with the God of our understanding. They give us the foundation to achieve our long-sought positive goals. Having entered this phase of our spiritual program through practicing the previous 10 steps, most of us welcome the exercise of prayer and meditation. Our spiritual condition is the basis for a successful recovery that offers unlimited growth. Many of us really begin to appreciate our recovery when we get to the 11th step. In the 11th step, our lives take on a deeper meaning. By surrendering control, we gain a far greater power. The nature of our belief will determine the manner of our prayer and meditations. We need only to make sure that we have a system of belief that works for us. Results count in recovery. As has been noted elsewhere, our prayers seemed to work as soon as we entered the program of Narcotics Anonymous and we surrendered to our disease. The conscious contact described in this step is the direct result of living the steps. We use this step to improve and maintain our spiritual condition. When we first came into the program, we received help from a power greater than ourselves. This was set in motion by our surrender to the program. The purpose of the 11th step is to increase our awareness of that power and to improve our ability to use it as a source of strength in our new lives. The more we improve our conscious contact with our God through prayer and meditation, the easier it is to say, "Your will, not mine, be done." We can ask for God's help when we need it and our lives get better. The experiences that some people talk about regarding meditation and individual religious beliefs don't always apply to us. Ours is a spiritual, not a religious program. By the time we get to the 11th step, character defects that caused problems in the past have been addressed by working the preceding 10 steps. The image of the kind of person that we would like to be is a fleeting glimpse of God's will for us. Often, our outlook is so limited that we can only see our immediate wants and needs. It is easy to slip back into our old ways. To ensure our continued growth and recovery, we have to learn to maintain our lives on a spiritually sound basis. God will not force His goodness on us, but we will receive it if we ask. We usually feel something is different in the moment, but don't see the change in our lives till later. When we finally get our own selfish motives out of the way, we begin to find a peace that we have never imagined possible. Enforced morality lacks the power that comes to us when we choose to live a spiritual life. Most of us pray when we are hurting. We learn that if we pray regularly, we won't be hurting as often or as intensely. Outside of Narcotics Anonymous, there are any number of different groups practicing meditation. Nearly all of these groups are connected with a particular religion or philosophy. An endorsement of any one of these methods would be a violation of our traditions and a restriction on the individual's right to have a God of his understanding. Meditation allows us to develop spiritually in our own way. Some of the things that didn't work for us in the past might work today. We take a fresh look at each day with an open mind. We know that if we pray for God's will, we will receive what is best for us, regardless of what we think. This knowledge is based on our belief and our experience as recovering addicts. Prayer is communicating our concerns to a power greater than ourselves. Sometimes when we pray, a remarkable thing happens. We find the means, ways, and energies to perform tasks far beyond our capabilities. We grasp the limitless strength provided for us through our daily prayer and surrender, as long as we keep faith and renew it. For some, prayer is asking for God's help. Meditation is listening for God's answer. We learn to be careful of praying for specific things. We pray that God show us His will and that He help us carry that out. In some cases, He makes His will so obvious to us that we have little difficulty seeing it. In others, our egos are so self-centered that we won't accept God's will for us without another struggle and surrender. If we pray for God to remove any distracting influences, the quality of our prayers usually improves and we feel a difference. Prayer takes practice, and we should remind ourselves that skilled people were not born with their skills. It took lots of effort on their part to develop them. Through prayer, we seek conscious contact with our God. In meditation, we achieve this contact, and the 11th step helps us to maintain it. We may have been exposed to many religions and meditative disciplines before coming to Narcotics Anonymous. Some of us were devastated and completely confused by these practices. We were sure that it was God's will for us to use drugs to reach higher consciousness. Many of us found ourselves in very strange states as a result of these practices. We never suspected the damaging effects of our addiction as the root of our difficulty and pursued to the end whatever path offered hope. In quiet moments of meditation, God's will can become evident to us. Quieting the mind through meditation brings an inner peace that brings us into contact with the God within us. The basic premise of meditation is that it is difficult, if not impossible, to obtain conscious contact unless our mind is still. The usual never-ending succession of thoughts has to cease for progress to be made. So our preliminary practice is aimed at stilling the mind and letting the thoughts that arise die a natural death. We leave our thoughts behind us as the meditation part of the 11th step becomes a reality for us. Emotional balance is one of the first results of meditation, and our experience bears this out. Some of us came into the program broken and hung around for a while, only to find God or salvation in one kind of religious cult or another. It's easy to float back out the door on a cloud of religious zeal and forget that we are addicts with an incurable disease. It is said that for meditation to be of value, the results must show in our daily lives. This fact is implicit in the 11th step, His will for us, and the power to carry that out. For those of us who do not pray, meditation is our only way of working this step. We find ourselves praying because it brings us peace and restores our confidence and courage. It helps us to live a life that is free of fear and distrust. When we remove our selfish motives and pray for guidance, we find feelings of peace and serenity. We begin to experience an awareness and an empathy with other people that was not possible before working this step. As we seek our personal contact with God, we begin to open up as a flower in the sun. We begin to see that God's will, God's love, has been present all the time, just waiting for us to accept it. We do the footwork and accept what's been given to us freely on a daily basis. We find relying on God's becomes more comfortable for us. When we first come to the program, we usually ask for a lot of things that seem to be important wants and needs. As we grow spiritually and find a power greater than ourselves, we begin to realize that as long as our spiritual needs are met, our living for problems are reduced to a point of comfort. When we forget where our real strength lies, we quickly become subject to the same patterns of thinking and action that got us into the program in the first place. We eventually redefine our beliefs and understanding to the point where we see that our greatest need is for knowledge of God's will for us and the strength to carry that out. We are able to set aside some of our personal preference because we learn that God's will for us consists of the very things we most value. God's will for us becomes our own true will for ourselves. This happens in an intuitive manner that can't be adequately explained in words. We become willing to let other people be who they are without having to pass judgment on them. The urgency to take care of things isn't there anymore. We couldn't comprehend acceptance in the beginning. Today we can. We know that whatever the day brings, God has given us everything we need for our spiritual well-being. It's all right for us to admit powerlessness because God is powerful enough to help us stay clean and enjoy spiritual progress. God is helping us to get our house in order. We begin to see more clearly what is real. Through constant contact with our higher power, the answers that we seek come to us. We gain the ability to do what we once could not. We respect the beliefs of others. We encourage you to seek strength and godliness according to your own belief. We are thankful for this step because we begin to get what is best for us. Sometimes we prayed for our wants and got trapped once we got them. We could pray and get something, then have to pray for its removal because we couldn't handle it. Hopefully, having learned the power of prayer and the responsibility prayer brings with it, we can use the 11th step as a guideline for our daily program. We begin to pray only for God's will for us. This way, we are getting only what we are capable of handling. We are able to respond to it and handle it because God helps us prepare for it. Some of us simply use our words to give thanks for God's grace. In an attitude of surrender and humility, we approach this step again and again to receive the gift of knowledge and strength from the God of our own understanding. The 10th step clears away the areas of the present so that we may work the 11th step. Without this step, it is unlikely that we could experience a spiritual awakening, practice spiritual principles in our lives, or carry a sufficient message to attract others to recovery. There is a spiritual principle of giving away what we have been freely given in Narcotics Anonymous in order to keep it. By helping others to stay clean, we enjoy the benefit of the spiritual wealth that we have found. We must give freely and gratefully that which has been freely and gratefully given to us.